title of her speech is Looking Beyond the Veil. She says there are many misconceptions and stereotypes that exist against the Muslim head cover. But this speech will be clarifying some common misconceptions and stereotypes regarding this issue. From 6 to 8 minutes long, please help me welcome Raina Ashami.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, don't judge a book by its cover. We have all heard this metaphorical phrase before. If we try to look at the meaning behind this phrase, this is what you'll find. You shouldn't prejudge the worth or value of something by its outward appearance. I think we're all going to more or less agree, though, that the true meaning of this quote does not exist anymore, and that the quote doesn't really live up to its meaning anymore. I specifically chose to start my speech by this quote because I find it very relevant to the topic I'm going to be talking to you guys about today, which is, like it was said in the introduction, the Muslim head cover, which has a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that exist against it. And unfortunately, there's so much people who do judge just, the appearance, the outer appearance, and people start, spreading rumors that eventually turn into misconceptions and stereotypes. So it's always a constant battle to always have to get up and speak about it, which is fine, which I really don't mind doing. And there's so many things that are responsible for the spread of those misconceptions. I think it probably has to do primarily, I'll probably say the media has the, the number one source, being the number one source of the widespread of those misconceptions and stereotypes. But whatever the reason is, that doesn't really matter. The problem does exist, and it is a constant battle, like I said. Some of those common misconceptions include things such as all veiled women are oppressed, they're repressed, they don't have rights, they can't get an education, and so much more. I do know that there's probably a lot of people here that do know that those things are incorrect, but I think you're also going to agree that there are a lot of people out there who do believe in them, or else it wouldn't have been this widespread. And just to illustrate to you that there are a lot of people who do believe in them, I'm going to be quoting to you something that I read on a journalist's blog. She's an Egyptian journalist, she's veiled, and she appeared on CNN just a few months ago to discuss the recent and still existing uprisings going on in the Middle East. After she was done with her speech, or her interview on CNN, somebody logged into her blog and left the following comment. This is what they wrote. And like I said, I'm going to be quoting to you exactly what he wrote. And you can pick out a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that were left into it, that were written into it. And by the way, feel free to laugh or smile or anything, I won't be offended. I actually laughed myself the very first time that I read it. So this is what he wrote. You are a good communicator, but you still reflect the image of slavery wearing that repressive headscarf while displaying a misplaced and excessive makeup. I'm glad I live in the Dominican Republic. Although we have a corrupt democracy, at least our women are free to wear anything, anytime, and look feminine. I really do feel sorry for Muslim men and women who have to wear clothes from the 10th century and appear so scruffy with mulatto's robes. You want to act Western, but you look like an Afghan peasant. So, as you can tell, after I read this quote, I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. And I think you can probably tell why I had such bipolar opposite feelings at the same exact time. And it has to do a lot with the fact that there's so many people who do believe in those common misconceptions and stereotypes, which have no sense of truthfulness in them whatsoever. And I'll probably have to say, I'm going to have to clarify a little bit about those misconceptions. It's so, like I said, they have no truthfulness in them whatsoever. We're not forced into wearing them, we're obligated to wearing it, and I think there's a huge difference between being forced to do something and being obligated to do it. It's a sign of dedication to God, it's a sign of dedication to your religion, and most importantly, it's a sign of modesty. So everything that he wrote in there about being repressed, about being oppressed, about, like you feel sorry for us, all those things are absolutely incorrect. No sense of truthfulness in them whatsoever. There's something else that I want to point out to you guys. That same journalist that I was talking to you about, her name is Ifarika Tafni. Just a few months ago, she won an award for her article, and in that article, she made a very interesting point, which I could completely relate to, and I really wanted to share it with you guys today. She said that a veiled woman is always somehow tied back to her veil. Either she gets too much positive attention or too much negative attention. And let me tell you what she meant by that. She said she never really gets what she deserves, as her award, pretty much. She says she can get too much positive attention when she's successful, when she has a career, when she has an education. Because, like I said, all those common misconceptions that exist against her of not getting an education, of being depressed, of having to stay at home, of all those things, all those common things. When they do find that there's a veiled woman out there who is successful and she does have a career, they're like, oh wow, she probably had to take that extra mile, or she had to, like fight for her rights with her parents, or she had to stand up for her rights and all that. And they're like, oh wow, and she's still successful. So it somehow makes her inferior on top of others, and all that fake propaganda and all that fake attention that she's getting is completely undeserved, because she probably put in the same exact effort as anybody else, but who's getting all the attention? She's getting the attention because, like I said, she has misconceptions and stereotypes that exist against her. So, it somehow makes her inferior on top of others, and somehow makes it unfair for others because they put in the same exact effort. The only barrier between her and being successful is just like anybody else, just the inner willingness of her to be successful or to want to be successful. Now, if she's not successful, on the other hand, if she does not have a career, if she did not get an education, if she chose anything else over her career, maybe her family, maybe her husband, maybe their house, anything else, it's common. There's a lot of people who choose that, but unfortunately for her, because she has all those misconceptions and stereotypes that exist against her, they're like, oh yeah, see, it's because her father or her brother or her husband forced her to stay at home, she has no rights, that's why she doesn't have an education. If she would have been anybody else though, nobody would have cared. Everybody would have been like, oh, it's okay. It's just she chose her family or anything else over her career. And they're completely fine with it. But unfortunately for her, because she does have a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that exist against her, so she's going to be repressed or put down more, or getting all that negative attention that she does not really deserve. She is just like anybody else, pretty much. So as you can tell, it has to do a lot with all those misconceptions and stereotypes, all those attention, either the positive attention or the negative attention. So actually, Itharika Technic, the journalist I was talking to you about, she ended her article in a very beautiful way, and I cannot think of a better way to end my speech. She said, I cannot wait for the day when the veil is looked at as what it really is, just a piece of fabric. Mr. Kopak.